In this video we're going to look at some useful mathematical functions. The functions we're going to look at is SUMIF, the AVERAGEIF, the SUMIFS, the AVERAGEIFS and the COUNTIFS. These are just some mathematical functions that will be useful if you're working with data. In this example I have an asset register and a classification of those assets. If for instance I want to add up, in this case, all the land and buildings cost in this cell, I could use the SUMIF formula. So to talk you through it, I'll first use this insert function, and what we are looking for is a mathematical function, SUMIF. So you'll see if you look at the formula, it says SUMIF and there's SUMIFs of S. SUMIFs will do next, but let's start with SUMIF. So in this formula, first it asks you for a range. So the range is where the condition will be. So we are looking for land and buildings, so the range is this range. The criteria, what are we looking for, is land and buildings, so it's a cell here. And what do we want to return? The sum of the price, which is over here. And we can click OK, and there you get 2.4 million. Just also, if you want to drag this down, be very careful. I didn't lock any of these formulas, so if I drag it down, it will look maybe like it's working, and that is why I've put this control total over here. You can see this is 6793 and this is 6208, and the reason is because these are relative currencies. So if I click there, you can see where it's looking. If I click on the second one, you can see now it's looking one step down, and if I click again you can see it looking 2 steps down. So the way you fix this is just by pressing F4 on these ranges only. So on that range there and the sum range, you press F4, please OK, and now if you drag it down you'll see that these two columns correspond. So that is how you use the SUMIF function. AVERAGEIF work in much the same way. So if I type in AVERAGEIF, the range we want to look for again is in the same range here. The criteria is land and buildings, and the average range that you want to bring back is in here. So here you'll have to be extra careful, because this, even if you drag it down, even if you had the right formulas, won't add up to this because it's an average, so it will be smaller numbers. Just make sure that you do lock down these formulas. You can lock them down as you're typing them, and then you can have the formula there, AVERAGEIF. So that's SUMIF and AVERAGEIF. I'm showing you both methods. This is the first method, SUMIF and AVERAGEIF. The second method is slightly more updated. So AVERAGEIF and SUMIF comes from the older versions of Excel. In the newer version there is something called SUMIFS. So that's what I'm going to explain next. SUMIFS and AVERAGEIFS to me read much simpler, so let's see how that works. So you click on SUMIFS there with a S, press tab. This time you'll see the criteria slightly different. So first it says, what do you want to sum up? I want to sum up that where this is equal to that. So if you talk to yourself in that manner, you'll see the formula is quite simple. So I'll do it once again. So you'll say SUMIFS. So first, what do you want to sum? Where do you want to look for it? And what are you looking for? And that's how simple it is. One more thing I want to show you for most formulas is, if your data set's not big, so this is not a very big data set, what you can also do is when you select the range, so what do you want to sum, you could click on this whole column B, then press comma, select the whole column C, press comma, and then your criteria, and it will work fine. This method is not recommended if you have very large data sets and you don't need to look at all of them. Otherwise you might slow down some of your worksheets, but for more than 90% of the worksheets you are more than able to select the whole column without impeding your performance, and if you'll see now you can easily copy this without you having to press the F4 key to lock those ranges down, because you're selecting a whole column and you'll see there's no numbers in B and C, for instance, example there. So that's the SUMIFS. And the last one was AVERAGEIFS, works the same thing. There you can see AVERAGEIFS. So you want to get the average of this range by looking at those criteria for land and buildings. So this the two methods to get the sum of criteria or the average of criteria. What I'm going to show you next might convince you that SUMIFS is always the better option. So what I'm going to show you now is, now I've added another dimension to this. So now we've got the region as well. The SUMIF and the AVERAGEIF can only look at one criteria, and as you saw before, it doesn't flow nicely in its logic. The parameters seems out of sequence. So what you can do with AVERAGEIFS or SUMIFS is have multiple conditions. I'm having 2 conditions there, but you can have even more than this. So let's see how that would work. So I'll say there, this is the SUMIFS. So what range do we want to sum? We want to sum this whole column. When this classifications is land and buildings, and now you see what's new here, you can keep going with criteria. You'll see there's criteria 1 and 2, but you can keep going as many times if you want to. So you can say comma, this region is east. So now I've added 2 conditions to that. So there's no land and buildings in east, but if you drag this down, and this formula will work on all of these, and if you sum up these values in between, you'll get the big total again here. So here you can add as many conditions as you want. So, and I feel, in my own opinion, that the SUMIFS logic of it flows much better in the way you would reason things through. So I would suggest SUMIFS and AVERAGEIFS, but you're most welcome to use either way. SUMIFS is the only way you can have multiple conditions like I've just done here. Also what you can do is something called COUNTIFS. So I'll copy these, or let's copy one of each. So I want to say, let's put east, west and north here, and this time I want to count how many times that we have an item. So there you'll say equals COUNTIFS, and there's only a criteria, so you want to count how many times does in this range do you get east, and you'll get a number. So, and you can drag this down and it'll work. I've cut this instead of copied, so always be careful, copy and paste. There you go. So now you can see there was 8 items in east, 8 in west. One last thing I want to show you on these formulas is where, for instance, here I clicked on F27 to get east. You can also put in double quotes the actual value. So in this value, let's say we want to see east, press enter, and you'll get the same value, so you don't have to select a cell. And the reason I said this is because you can, for instance here, let's call this big items. What you could say is, let's say SUMIF, or rather let's COUNTIFS again. In this criteria, so this time I'm clicking the price, comma, what am I looking for? And in double quotes I'm going to put the formula. So in double quotes, so that's the double quotes there. In that side of double quote, I'm going to say anything that's bigger than, say, 800,000, and enter. So now you can see in this list, you can see there's 1, 2, careful here because I've included the whole range. That's the total is included in there, so you must be careful. Like I said before, you can select our range, but because we don't using other criteria, this is causing a problem, so that's why you're getting 3 there. So be careful if there's totals in the way. But that is another thing I want to show you, that you can actually inside the formula in double quotes add another formula as a criteria, and that is how you can use SUMIFS, COUNTIFS and AVERAGEIFS. Hi, this is Anton from the Data Developer channel. If you've liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up below and subscribing to the channel, and thank you for watching.